Okay guys, welcome back. We're making a video on the first cultivation pass on soybeans where things go wrong. Uh, Most of the videos we've made so far have been where things go right, so I want to talk a little bit about how you mitigate and how you deal with it when things go wrong. So we're in a soybean field. You can look down at the ground a little bit, honey. We're at day 16 and we're coming in for the first cultivation. If you look at the field, you can see there are places where there are huge holes in the field. We've got about a foot inch, 12 inches or a foot there with no soybean. So what happened in this field? We had a relative dry time and I had enough moisture I thought to plant, and so I worked the ground. And right as I was pulling out with the field cultivator, before I got back with the planter, we had a rain. We got about 30 hundredths and it came down hard and fast. And so I was torn between, well, it was too wet to plant that day, so I was torn between waiting another day or two and field cultivating again to take out the weeds. Keep in mind, every time you work the ground or you disturb the ground, you expose weeds to sunlight, and so the weeds start germinating. And so I was torn between waiting a couple days for seeds that are in the that stage, weed seeds in that stage, and then field cultivating and planting again, or waiting a couple days and just planting right into that seed bed. So I made the decision. The weather at that time was hot. It was about 90 degrees. And they were calling for an extended dry period, so I just took the chance and I went ahead and planted 2 days after the 30 hundredths rain. So what I got, and I was short on moisture, so what I got was I got a little bit of an uneven stand in the field, and I also got weeds that are the exact same size as the beans. Pan around here a little bit, honey. We've got velvet leaf, and we have got pigweed, red root pigweed, that are the same size as the beans, and we got holes. So because I made a risky decision, we have to try and mitigate that now. So how we mitigate that, you can turn around and show them down the road there, honey. So the dry time that I feared was coming came, and after I planted the beans, the first 12 days of their life, they had 90 degrees. It was hot, it was 90, 95, and it did not rain, it stayed dry. So at we're at day 16 today, so at day 13, I came in and I rotary hoed. You remember me talking that I'm not a big fan of the rotary hoe, but I had weeds that were the same size as the beans. And when you looked out across the field, yeah, you could row the beans, but there were also, it was solid, pretty much solid green out here. And so I came and I rotary hoed the field. I wanted Deborah to come and film that day, but she couldn't. She was in Atchison that day. But I rotary hoed that seed bed, and boy, there was a cloud of dust. I did succeed in killing a whole bunch of these little foxtails. And if you look down at the field here, you can see these foxtails. There were ridges here, but these foxtails, when the rotary hoe came along, it pushed dirt down around them and it weakened them. It pushed dirt down around them and kind of laid them over. It made them vulnerable. And so now I'm coming along with the first pass, and just by moving a little bit of dirt, I can do that right there to these foxtails that were the same size as the bean, and I can really clean up the field. Now, in reality, there's going to be weeds out here. This field is not going to be a picture perfect organic field. This will be one of the fields that the neighbors say, yeah, that's the organic farmer, because there will be weeds out here that survive. But it will be adequate. We will have adequate weed control. There will be some yield reduction out here regardless, but it will not be as bad as you think. So look over here where I've gone a little bit, honey. So when I'm cultivating here, and the field is a little bit wet. So 2 days ago we had a 2-inch rain, and it wetted the ground right after I got done rotary hoeing. It rained again. It rained hard. And so I'm coming along now with the Danish tine. I've got my shields down. you will get to see the wheels in action. But when those first shanks on the cultivator, what I call the duck foot or the spade, when they come along, he's pulling the soil up, and the rolling wheels are rolling that dirt into the row. The cultivator, what I'm watching is the next shank back on the cultivator. And I want that shank to push the dirt in here to the row as close as possible. If they do that, they bury this weed here. That is, in effect, he was 2 inches away from the row, but he was half buried. And if he's half buried now, he will be weakened. And if he's weakened, then when we come back for the next pass in another 7 days, the beans in 7 days will really have jumped. The weed that is half buried or weakened or compromised in some way, he will die. He will get buried completely in the second pass. And so, once again, you've got to pay attention to you're trying to drive exactly in the center of the row, and you're trying to move fast enough that you are pushing dirt in here to this row as close as possible without completely burying the bean. Remember what I said in the other video, you can push dirt. Here I was going a little bit slow. I probably could be going faster. But you can push dirt up to those soybeans all the way to the point that you just hopefully don't bury the growing point. As long as you don't bury the growing point, the bean will continue to grow, and the weeds will be weakened. So focus right here, honey. See this big velvet leaf that was the same size as the beans? He is weakened. His growing point is actually buried. All that's sticking up is one leaf there. And so that velvet leaf will die, and we will win the battle. Thankfully, on the rotary hoeing the other day, it worked really good. We did kill all the foxtails that were an inch tall or shorter. And like I showed you over there, those tall foxtails, we knocked them down. And so they are weakened, and now we're gonna bury them. So let's look at the tractor run. Okay guys, before we start here, what I wanted to say outside, but the wind was horrible. This field has been in 4 years of row crop. That's another thing. The weed seed reservoir in the soil has built up to its maximum point. When we go back next year to our oats, and then the year after to red clover, we go in effect 2 years without any of the foxtail, red root pigweed, the cuckleburs, without anything going to seed. So at the, in our rotation with 4 years of row crop, in that 4th year of row crop, that's when you have the greatest weed control issues. You have the most weed seed. The weed seed bank is the strongest. The other thing I wanted to say about moisture, I told you it was a little bit wet. Well, the reason it's wet and that I'm out here today is we are at June 19th and the wheat is ready to combine. And so unfortunately I do not have another operator who can operate this cultivator. And so in order to cut wheat tomorrow, I have to cultivate today. Now let's run it. Okay guys, we tried to film with the window open there, and it allowed you to see better, but it also did not allow you to hear anything. So you're going to have to look through the cab of the window. Maybe next year we'll get a selfie stick or something and mount the camera on the cultivator itself. But the important things here is my speed is somewhere between 4 and 5 miles an hour. And the other important thing is that you're watching that back shank. There's a little ditch there from our rain the other day. There I got off of here and buried the soybeans, but now we're back on track. And we're running at about 4.5 miles an hour, and it's working correctly. Throwing that dirt right up there next to the bean, but not burying the growing points. There's spots in this field where it's just terribly thin, and then there's spots where the beans came perfectly, and so that is where you have to vary the speed. Here is the spot. We're coming up on a spot where the beans came through real good, and we had a little more foxtail, and so I'm going to move just a little bit faster. Take it up to 5 miles an hour there, and you can see how it's cleaning it up. Thanks, guys.